Again, year 8s, this time we're going to talk about unit ratios. Okay, so this is pretty similar to the ratio. Whoa, once again, I cannot spell and talk at the same time. So we're going to talk about how we can write ratios in terms of how they relate to each other. Okay, so the rule is if we have a ratio AB, we want to actually change it into something that looks like A over B. Remember, we've been doing that a lot. You just turn this into a fraction, but we want to make it to 1. So we want to get whatever this number is on the right side, we want to make it 1, okay? Don't worry about that too much. I will go through an example of exactly what that means. So for an example, let's try and convert 17.8 into a unit ratio, okay? So what we're going to do, why did I write that? Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is the first thing we're going to do is turn it into a fraction, okay? Turn it into a fraction. Now what we're going to do, the only thing that we need to do is take the bottom number and put it over itself. So we've really written the ratio out again, 17 to 8, and then we've just put 8 on the bottom of both of them, okay? So that's what you need to do. Take the second number and stick it on the bottom of a fraction of both parts, okay? I promise it sounds a bit tricky, but all you have to do is take the second number and stick it on the bottom of a fraction. And then you just type 17 over 8 into your calculator, you end up with 2.125, and 8 over 8 has got to be 1. So see what we've done? We've turned this, the last number, we've made it 1. That's what you want to do, and this is now a unit ratio. So this 2.1251 is equivalent to 17.8. It's just that this time we have decimals. Normally we've been saying we don't want decimals. This time we're asking you to actually change it into decimals so that we end up with a 1, okay? Now let's have another go at something that looks slightly trickier, okay? So if we have, so let's say find A if A to B equals 1.57, okay? So what we want this to be is, we'll go through it in a second. And we're also being told that B is 18.9, all right? So that's our question. Let's now try and figure it out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to write them as fractions to begin with, okay? So A over B, we've taken our fraction here, and we're going to take our thing over here. We're going to say it's 1.57 over 1, okay? Because we want it to be 1. So we're just going to write it out like this. We've got our A and our B. We've got 1.57 over 1. Now we know what B is, so let's put that in. If you want to skip the first step, you can, and go straight to this step. So instead of B, we're going to write 18.9, 1.57 over 1. Now we only have one unknown, and that makes it okay for us to solve. Now all we're going to do is move things around, just like normal algebra. We want to get A on its own, so this is what we want to get on its own. So what are we going to do? We're going to move the thing that's in the way, which is 18.9. Now what is 18.9? This is a fraction, so it means divide. So we're just going to times both sides by 18.9. 1.57 over 1. If you want, you can change this into a decimal number first, but there's no real point. 18.9, you type that straight into your calculator, and you get 29.67. So A is 29.67. That's what the question asked us to do. Find A. And we've done that, okay? So all you do is you put A and B as a fraction, and then you put 1.57 over 1. That's all you need to do. Then change, so you've got them in fractions, and then you just move things around like you normally do with algebra, okay? Make sure you find out what other information the question has, like we knew that B was 18.9, okay? Hopefully this is making a bit of sense. Let's do another example. Okay, so another example up here. So let's say, what is the ratio of a day's temperature? Oh, sorry, if the ratio of a day's temperature is, let's say someone found the ratio of the temperature of the day was 2.07 to 1. Remember, we always want the right side just to be 1. Okay, so what is the minimum if the maximum was 28 degrees? Okay, now we have enough information to find this out. So let's go through the example of how we do that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn them into fractions. We're going to say maximum over minimum equals 2.07 over 1. Now, just so you know, I put the maximum on the top because we know that that's going to be bigger than this one, isn't it? So if we're talking about big over little, because we've done that, big over little, we want big over little. So it makes sense, okay? So these two things are going to match up because if we put it the other way around, we would end up finding out that the minimum was bigger than 28. Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? So we know what the maximum was. So we know that it was 28 over the minimum. Let's just call it M because we don't know what it is. 2.07 over 1. Okay, so we'll leave that as it is. Now, what you can do here to make this a bit easier is just flip them both because remember, what you want to do is get M on its own, but it's currently on the bottom of a fraction. Remember, you can't just move we move the bottom of a fraction, well, we're still going to have unknowns. And you can do that and then keep moving things around if you want. But there's no real point. Let's just flip them. So M over 28, but if we flip this side, we also have to flip this side, okay? That's really important. If you don't do that, you'll totally end up with the wrong answer. Now, we're going to get rid of 28 because, once again, we want to find M. That's the bit we want to get on its own. So, M divided by 28, so we do the opposite. We times by 28. Type that into your calculator. Once you've got M by itself, you can just type this stuff straight into your calculator and you find out it's 13.53 degrees. That must have been the minimum temperature for the day if this is the ratio of the temperatures. Okay, so hopefully this has been a bit helpful. The important bit to remember, let's just go back a page, please. Turn. Oh, why is it doing that? Grrr. There we go. Okay, so remember what we want to do is we want to put them on fractions. So we want to turn our ratios into fractions and we want to put whatever this is over 1, okay? We're putting this over 1. So whatever we're told the ratio is, we put it over 1, just like what we did on the other page. We put it over 1, okay? So hopefully this makes sense. Have a go. So have a go at doing a couple of examples from the book, and if you're still having trouble, come and see me.